Caliban. Flynn's relationship with acting has always felt akin to breathing or waking up each morning. It's something he's simply compelled to do. For as long as he can remember, he's regarded the art form as a deep, instinctual calling, rather than an interest or vocation. He still recalls his first drama class, the horror of being made to stand in front of his peers and perform an entirely improvised routine. He recalls profound apprehension, crippling anxiety. But it had all melted away the second he started speaking. For the first time in his life, he'd felt truly comfortable in his own skin. Paradoxically, pretending to be someone else for a few minutes had felt more natural than over a decade of being himself. After studying the discipline at college and performing various roles in local productions, Flynn was accepted at one of the greatest drama schools in the country. His pathway seemed perfectly clear. Work tirelessly, graduate, then make a living from acting. What he hadn't accounted for, however, were all the ancillary details, the dull minutiae that many gifted fledglings must endure. For instance, he knew that although his study days would already be incredibly long, he'd also need to work a menial job to support himself. He'd truthfully disregarded the latter as a mere formality, however, certain that any minimum wage occupation would be easy to secure. It's a harsh wake-up call then, to find himself still jobless 5 weeks into his course, flat broke and on the verge of dropping out. Realising that he has just enough left of his first student loan instalment to pay next month's rent, and precious little else, Flynn spends the final 10 days of October frantically searching for part-time employment. He fills in countless applications, all to no avail. He tries supermarkets and clothes stores, fast food restaurants and cafes, never receiving anything better than, "Thanks, we'll keep you in mind." Then, on the 10th day, after all but admitting defeat, he stumbles into the Blue Orchid Theatre, a stone's throw from his campus, for no other reason than to cheer himself up. He peruses the show leaflets, pocketing the ones that interest him most. The Tempest, Hamlet, the importance of being earnest. But at some point during Flynn's reverie, a middle-aged man loudly clears his throat from behind the desk. "Can I help you?" "Oh, it was just," the young man mutters before blurting, I played Horatio in Hamlet recently." "You seem a little young for that." Flynn mentions his drama school, despite playing Horatio elsewhere, which impresses the gentleman greatly, and the pair chat for a long while about theatre, discussing the nuances of Shakespeare and Oscar Wilde. Eventually the student reveals his predicament, his pressing financial woes. "You know, we do have a vacancy," the man says casually. "Would you be interested in becoming an usher?" It strikes Flynn that the stars have aligned, and a miraculous lifeline has been offered. Employment at a dream location, working hours timed perfectly with his week. And during his first few shifts he discovers that the job is relaxed and straightforward. With everyone seated and the curtain down, Flynn can simply stand and watch the performances, analysing the actors' choices, scrutinising their delivery. It's the kind of unique analysis that soon bleeds into his training. He quickly acquires technique far beyond that of his peers. And much to their envy, he's once more cast in a production of Hamlet, this time assuming the coveted lead role. Things continue to improve a month later, when he's promoted to shift supervisor, and it strikes the young thespian that his pathway is clear again. His money worries are over. The tireless focus can resume. Each morning, Flynn wakes at dawn for a packed day of classes and rehearsals, before hurrying to the Blue Orchid Theatre and commencing his shift. Come midnight, he's the only person left in the venue, which he checks over and typically locks up after 1. The theatre seems to take on a new life in this final hour. The stage exudes silence, serenity, a stillness in stark juxtaposition to the frenzy that had previously occurred. Sometimes he stands on stage and pictures himself post-performance, bowing to an audience rapturous and hungry for more. In class one day they discuss Shakespeare's preoccupation with insomnia, which Flynn finds he can personally relate to. In recent weeks he's become familiar with the notion of being too tired to sleep, a chronic state that exacerbates restlessness, rather than facilitating the reverse. The pressure he now feels as a 19-year-old student is immense. So many people apparently depending on him, so few hours in the day. He typically returns from the Blue Orchid around 1:30, climbs to bed at 2, and finds that his brain is a whirl of activity. He mulls over lines without meaning to, acts out scenes in his head, all the while hoping to simply switch off his brain, praying for sleep that puts each day to rest, sleep that relieves the weary labourer and heals hurt minds. Macbeth, Act 2, Scene 2. As such respite sadly continues to elude him, however, he elects to sit up reading the course literature, scanning the pages with aching bloodshot eyes. On the better nights, his mind may permit him perhaps an hour of oblivion, before he wakes and commences another grueling day. Although Flynn is aware that his moods are becoming erratic, strangely his performance in the art seems enhanced, rather than hindered. Why waste hours on sleep that could be spent on study, he thinks. What's the odd instance of grouchiness compared to a full day of ecstasy? Now he truly has purpose, raison d'etre, a divine pathway he must follow. It's obvious now that fate and serendipity have been urging him along, placing him exactly where he needed to be. They'd steered him into the Blue Orchid in October, allowing him to sharpen his skills better than any of his peers. It's clear that his destiny is to become a master of his craft, the greatest actor to ever bless stage or screen. In acting workshop, he's able to channel all the pent-up nervous energy, to sift through a range of emotions at will, bringing a level of intensity his instructors say they've never witnessed before. He can cry on command for an angst-ridden soliloquy, then immediately compose himself for calm and measured prose. At lunch one afternoon, 2 of his classmates expressed concern for him, however, suggesting that he looks exhausted, asking if he's been getting enough sleep. Sleep is for the weak, he hears himself assert with authority. It's clear that his peers merely envy what they cannot emulate. They feel overshadowed, diminished by his superior talent and instinct. Flynn's zeal cannot be contained when the workshops are over, though. It seeps into all other areas of his life. At the theatre he charms the ticket holders, reciting lines from Othello and The Tempest as he ushers them to their seats. While many seem bemused or bewildered, others are impressed by his passion, praising him to the management and donating generous tips. It strikes him lately that the theatre has assumed another new life in the final hour before locking up. The serenity it once exuded has been replaced by something sinister. Flynn starts to fear that he is no longer alone. An ominous presence is skulking in the shadows, biding its time, watching him with malicious intent. And after a few more nights like this, he becomes attuned to its movements. It's a creature he is soon able to name. Caliban, the hellish offspring of Sycorax, a disfigured Shakespearean nightmare, strangely occupying this mortal domain. The diabolical mooncalf is hungry. It sees Flynn for who he is and what he seeks to accomplish. To become renowned and revered, to eventually influence the masses and willed power through charm and celebrity. Flynn is a modern-day messiah. He knows this now. Finding fame through his acting talent is merely a means to an end. His true purpose is to change the world, to spread love and unity, and challenge malevolence wherever he finds it. Caliban seeks to prevent this, however. He is evil incarnate, lying in wait, choosing this moment to let his presence be known. Flynn runs onto the empty stage to face the monster head-on, and for a moment he glimpses its shadow as it drifts across the wall. A hunched-over figure, half man, half beast, with a snarling maxilla and razor-like claws. The young man fights every impulse to cry out in terror, to flee from the theatre and hide. "I see you, Caliban," he yells into the darkness, and though his neck is pricked with goose pimples, fear is absent from his cry. Acting has bestowed him with this gift. Being brave and feigning bravery are almost identical, two sides of the same coin, and to conquer this demon, he must silence internal ones first. He scans the area behind the stage, finding a prop table, the legendary skull used in Hamlet. Without doubt, the shapeshifter has hidden himself within. Flynn picks it up, peering into the deceptively hollow eyes. "Hell is empty, and all the devils are here," he shouts. "But I will deliver you to the lake of fire myself." The student returns home to his dorm that night more emboldened than ever. He studies The Tempest cover to cover, performing every line. He has no intention of even fighting his insomnia now. The idea of sleeping couldn't be further from his mind. His task is too important. Hone the craft, become undeniable, a master, a prodigy. Fame and adulation will follow, then unparalleled exposure. A platform to lead from, to shout down at his followers and usher in a new dawn. But the next day during rehearsals, his tutor regards him with disappointment and frustration. "Why the hell are you reciting Tempest, Flynn? We're doing Hamlet. You know, that little production you'll be leading very soon." "Pull yourself together," a classmate mutters before handing him the prop. Flynn makes a nervous attempt at the prince's monologue. "Alas, poor Yorick." But when he glances at the skull, Caliban's demon face grins back at him. It's a violent flash, radiating malice and evil intentions. Flynn gasps, drops the head, which lands with a crack on the ground. Then he glimpses Caliban's essence escaping, snaking through the air and taking Flynn's tutor as a host. "I knew I was taking a gamble, giving the lead role to a first year," the possessed teacher snaps. "It's obvious you've been burning the candle at both ends." "I haven't, You need to sort yourself out. If you turn up to rehearsals in this state again, I'll be forced to recast you." Flynn is sent home, disconsolate, under the strictest orders to rest. But the young man cannot, and the next few weeks are a haze of feverish and fraught interactions. Caliban stalks him doggedly, spying, shape-shifting, possessing a legion of players in his life. The theatre manager, who twice sends him home during his shift. The uni talent coordinator, who threatens to cut him from the university production altogether. The horde of peers all vying to take his place. Flynn somehow holds strong though, and eventually finds focus, clinging onto his role and dazzling everyone in the final rehearsals, playing an inspired and compelling Hamlet. The naysayers are suitably silenced. Flynn's divine path re-emerges once more. On opening night, he takes to a packed auditorium and acts out of his skin, performing with the verve and passion of a seasoned professional. He's finally doing it, his godly ambition, his destiny. And the audience seems just like the one in his daydreams, their applause steadily intensifying from Act 1 to 4. As the two clowns are digging Ophelia's grave, Hamlet and Horatio are side of stage with the director, whose eyes are brimming with pride. Flynn's moment is drawing near, the illustrious monologue. On his cue, he steps out onto the stage feeling unstoppable, skillfully engaging with the first clown, performing his own lines impeccably, lost in a wondrous state of flow. Then the time has arrived to fully blow his audience away. He commences the address. Alas, poor Yorick. But Caliban too has been waiting for this moment. In a sudden violent mutation, the skull reassumes its sickening form. Its teeth become jagged black fangs which bite down on Flynn's delicate forearm, prolonged canines digging deep into flesh. The monster has seized him. On stage, a wild scene unfolds, and Flynn fades in and out of lucidity. The pain in his arm is excruciating. He's throwing the skull, screaming, fighting the monster's ethereal form. A collective gasp roars from the audience, which quickly becomes frantic. Dozens rise to their feet and hurry for the exit. Flynn wrestles with the bedeviled cast members who try to restrain him. Then he's finally overwhelmed by a legion of frenzied fiends. Their manic eyes pierce through him, while loud demonic screams echo throughout the hall. The young actor resists for as long as he can, till his limbs are forcibly pinned to the stage. More demons descend. Icy blue fingers grip his skin, and his arm is pierced by a spike even colder still. Darkness takes hold. Soon after, he finds himself lying on a bed, then sleeps for what feels like an eternity. Caliban haunts his dreams, slashing claws, snapping blood-soaked jaws. Eventually he wakes. Things feel calmer. In time, he's able to speak with a nurse. She gently explains that he's been sectioned following a psychotic episode. He finally comes to terms with the news, and within another week, he's released. He meets with tutors who talk him through the incident, their eyes full of pity and unease. And though he cannot bring himself to watch, he learns that the production of Hamlet has continued in his absence. When he returns to lectures, his anxious peers shrink and shy away in his presence. He shudders now at embarrassing flashbacks, absurd interactions shared after class, no longer confusing his peers' former concern for jealousy. With his sanity restored, Flynn reflects on the episode, understanding exactly how he'd let reality slip away. After a long chat, the theatre manager graciously rehires him as an usher. He learns to prioritise sleep, to better manage his time, to finally put imaginary demons to rest. A month later, though, he finds himself troubled by a lump on his forearm, which his doctor dismisses as a large subcutaneous abscess. The boil is an unusual source of torment, however, and itches far more than it should. One day, Flynn's fervent scratching breaks the skin, revealing something decidedly firmer than a mere swollen spot. The pinnacle seems blackened and calcified, better resembling petrified bone. Flynn digs in with tweezers and slowly drags out the foreign object. With horror, he inspects a black pointed fang. Thank you for making it all the way to the end. If you enjoyed it, tell your friends. Your support is massively appreciated.